You overthink, and deep down you know it. A delayed response, an awkward silence, a look you didn't understand, and your mind is already inventing entire stories. They're all bad, and almost always much worse than the truth. In the end, none of it happens. Even so, you keep trying to decipher what the other person meant, trying to control what's not under your control, trying to guess everything that could go wrong. It's as if your mind has learned to turn small things into big problems. Every detail becomes a danger warning, as if you have to defend yourself all the time. But deep down you know, overthinking never solved anything. It never brought calm, never changed the ending of the story, never made you stronger. Overthinking only leaves you tired, drained of energy, and clouded your vision. The Stoics spoke about this centuries ago. They understood that the mind hurts itself when it tries to control what it cannot, when it tries to make sense of every silence, when it tries to protect itself from something that hasn't even happened yet. And there is a simple, firm, and liberating truth. If something is not in your hands, it doesn't deserve your worry. If it is in your hands, it doesn't need your anxiety. It needs your attitude. What depends on you is resolved with action, not with fear created by your imagination. So the next time your thoughts start racing too fast, stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and return to the present. Confidence doesn't come from control. It comes from how you act when life puts you to the test. And until you make that choice, life will continue to present you with challenges. Not to punish you, but to show you little by little that you are far more capable than you think. Today, these Stoic lessons will help you release the extra weight, regain clarity, and find again the confidence you thought you had lost. Before we begin, I only ask two things of you. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. This helps this message reach those who also need this change. Now let's move on to our lessons. 1. Your mind exaggerates more than you realize. Sometimes your head feels like an old radio that never turns off. It keeps making noise all the time. While you're working, driving, showering, or trying to relax, thoughts talk non-stop, almost always at the wrong times. They bring back memories of what went wrong, create problems that don't exist, and concoct scenes that only serve to steal your peace of mind. But pay attention to this. Not everything that goes through your mind is true. Often it's not helping you. It's just trying to protect you from old dangers. When this protection goes too far, it becomes just noise. Then you start treating worry as if it were fact. The mind likes to exaggerate. It takes something small, stretches it, changes its shape, and transforms it into a huge whirlwind. She creates terrible futures using only fear and imagination. Think about it. How many times have you suffered prematurely, lost sleep, and been restless over stories that never came true? That's how it is. Fear writes excellent scripts, but almost always gets the ending wrong. Even so, you believe it because you've become accustomed to thinking that this inner voice is the truth. The Stoics already warned about this. For them, the mind is not the enemy. The mistake lies in believing that every thought is reality. Marcus Aurelius said that the way you live depends on the way you think. Not because thoughts have magic, but because they change the way you understand everything around you. Imagine the mind as a turbulent river. The problem is thinking you need to get into that river. Stoic practice teaches you to observe the water flowing by without being swept away by it. When an anxious thought appears, don't fight it. Don't try to overcome it. Don't try to prove anything. Do as someone does at a train station. You see the train go by. Just because it's arrived doesn't mean you have to get on it. Repeat a simple but powerful phrase. That's just a thought, not a fact. This phrase acts as an anchor. It brings you back to the present moment and lowers the volume of that internal radio. You don't need to eliminate thoughts. That would be like trying to stop the sea from making waves. But you can learn not to drown in them. It's like teaching a restless dog not to bark at every noise. With training and patience, it calms down and learns to trust. Fear works the same way. When you give it a name, it becomes smaller. When you observe it without running away, it loses power. When you stop reacting automatically, it ceases to control you. Peace doesn't arise when the mind is completely silent. It appears when you stop believing everything it tells you. It's not about silencing your thoughts, but about not letting them control your life. Confidence grows when you understand that you don't control everything, but you can choose how to react to what you think. Remember, fire doesn't extinguish fire, and worry doesn't overcome worry. Breathe, observe, let go, and trust. Over time, you realize that that frightening noise was just the echo of your insecurity, and the moment you choose calm over contrived disaster, your mind understands the signal, slows down, and your essence takes back control. 2. When you control everything, it becomes a prison. The truth is clear, but not always easy to accept. You spend a large part of your life trying to make everything happen your way. You want people to behave as you expect. You want your plans to follow a perfect path. You want nothing to change. When life doesn't follow these rules, because it never does, anxiety, anger, and that weight in your chest arise, as if everything is slipping through your fingers. Trying to control is like trying to hold on to wet sand. The more force you use, the faster it falls. Even so, you keep trying because the mind fears what it doesn't know. It prefers to imagine bad things, rather than accept that it doesn't know what comes next. That's where worry comes from, the desperate desire to predict what was never under your control. The Stoics spoke of this simply. There are things that depend on you and things that don't. Your choice depends on your actions. Your attitude depends on your efforts. But the actions of other people, time, the path situations take, none of that is in your hands, yet we insist on fighting with life, pushing doors that won't open, following paths that have already shown they aren't for us. In the end, it's not control we lose, it's peace of mind. Think of it this way. Life wasn't created to be controlled, but to be accompanied. It has its own timing, curves, and important pauses. Often what seems to take a long time today is precisely what's protecting you from something you're not yet ready for. Wanting to control everything is just another way of saying, I don't trust you. Trusting isn't about giving up or standing still. It's about stopping fighting against what's beyond your control and using your energy on what truly changes your day. Want to try? Start with small things. Today, notice how many times you try to control what doesn't depend on you. The answer that doesn't come, the traffic, someone's reaction, the direction of a conversation. Every time you notice that impulse, stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and say silently, this is not in my hands. Total control is a tiring fantasy. Acceptance is a liberating truth. And the difference between the two can be summed up in a single word: confidence. Not that childish confidence that everything will happen as you want, but the firm confidence that, whatever happens, you will know how to act. Life doesn't require you to control everything. It asks you to trust yourself. Letting go isn't losing. Letting go is allowing each thing to find its place. It is the peace that appears when you understand that living is not about squeezing the world tightly, but about walking within it, with attention, courage, and confidence. 3. The courage to trust the path. It's not easy to accept that you're not in control of everything, that life doesn't make promises, that there's no guide telling you what the next step should be. When you realize this, your mind races. You create fears. You conjure up bad scenarios. You imagine difficulties that aren't even real. You want to feel safe. You want to know what comes next. You want to have the feeling that everything is under control. But it's precisely what you don't know that makes you grow. Uncertainty is the most sincere test of confidence. It's about moving forward even when the path isn't yet visible. It's about taking a deep breath even when your mind insists on painting disasters. We live in a time that loves control, perfect schedules, and plans that seem to protect us from everything. Just something changing suddenly can give the feeling that everything has fallen apart. But life isn't an organized schedule. It's like a trail through the forest where you only see a piece at a time. If you look closely, you'll realize that many of the best parts of your story weren't planned. They emerged when you had the courage to continue without knowing where it would end. The fear of the unknown tries to stop you because it makes you believe that being safe means staying where you are. But in reality, it's staying still that holds you back. And that's the key. Growing up requires you to accept the empty space between one step and the next. It requires you to walk without guarantees, to trust before you see. Uncertainty is where trust is born. It is in this place where nothing is certain that your strength begins to emerge. The Stoics spoke of this clearly. For them, calmness was not about having everything resolved. It was about keeping a clear mind, even when you don't know what comes next. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that a wise person does not fear tomorrow because they trust in themselves, not in the results. And that's what you forget when anxiety takes over. Confidence lies within you, not in what may or may not happen. Walking without a map doesn't mean being lost. It means believing that the next step appears after you move. It's about replacing "what if it goes wrong" with "what if it goes right." This change alters your energy, changes your posture, and transforms the way you face life. The unknown isn't always a danger. Sometimes it's exactly what frees you from your shackles. It's frightening at first, but then it becomes the fresh air that renews you. Uncertainty isn't the enemy, it's the teacher. It teaches you to stop seeking guarantees that don't exist and to trust the path. True faith, not tied to religion but to humanity, is this quiet certainty that whatever happens, you will know how to cope. When you accept that you don't know everything, your body relaxes, your mind slows down. You stop demanding perfection from life and begin to walk with it, not against it. Calmness doesn't arise when the future becomes clear. It is born when you stop demanding that it be so. So, if you don't have all the answers today, that's okay. No great journey begins with total clarity. What matters is not having a complete map, but knowing where you want to go. Uncertainty is not punishment. It's simply life asking a question. Do you trust yourself? When you answer yes, something powerful happens. The unknown ceases to frighten and becomes freedom. Walking without certainty is not carelessness. It's courage. And only those who truly trust themselves can move forward without fear of getting lost. 4. Your mind either helps you or brings you down. Your mind never stops talking. It comments on everything, complains, compares, points out mistakes, and often uses a manner with you that you would never use with someone you love. If you spoke to a friend the same way you speak to yourself, that person would leave immediately. But because it's you, you accept it, listen, and without noticing, let this harsh self-talk dictate who you think you are and how you react to the world. The truth is simple. What you say to yourself builds the place where you live inside. Every day you feed one of two voices, the one that lifts you up or the one that pulls you down. Each silent phrase leaves a mark on your confidence. What you repeat becomes the path. What you insist on becomes truth. When your inner dialogue is born from fear, guilt, or insecurity, you create a fog within yourself, and everything starts to seem wrong. You forget what you're capable of. You magnify your mistakes, diminish your victories, and treat each stumble as if it were the end of the line. There's something very important here. The brain doesn't separate what happens from what you say is happening. When you repeat "I can't," your mind learns that as a limit. When you say "I'll try," it finds an opening. That's the difference between being trapped by your own thoughts or using them to your advantage. For the Stoics, the mind can be a great ally or a great problem. It all depends on how you talk to it and how you teach it. Teaching your mind isn't about erasing bad thoughts, but about learning to speak to yourself with balance, with the same patience you would have with someone who is still learning. Treating yourself with kindness isn't weakness, it's emotional training. Speaking harshly to yourself doesn't make you progress faster, it only makes you want to give up prematurely. Real strength appears when you support yourself, especially on days when everything seems unstable. Instead of saying "I'm terrible at this," say "I'm learning." Instead of "it never works for me," try "this time it might be different." These phrases aren't magic. They create an inner space where you can grow without fear of punishment. The problem has never been doubting. Doubt shows that you care and are trying. The problem is attacking yourself because of it. When every mistake becomes an attack, you start to be afraid to act. But when every fall becomes a sign of care, you learn to trust. Try something simple. When a negative thought appears, respond with the voice of someone who likes you. Not to pretend everything is okay, but to find balance. If your mind says "I'll never succeed," respond, "Maybe not today, but I'm closer than yesterday." If it says "I'm a disaster," say, "I'm human and I'm growing." This small habit changes everything. It changes your body, your energy, and your outlook on life. When you treat yourself with more calm, your vision adjusts, your strength returns, and your confidence begins to blossom. Confidence doesn't appear suddenly. It's built in these details, in these silent conversations that only you hear, in these daily choices not to abandon yourself. You don't need to be perfect to trust yourself. You just need to keep going. Your inner dialogue is the story that guides your life, and every story can be rewritten. You can exchange drama for learning, criticism for impulse, and fear for wisdom. It all starts with changing the tone. When you learn to be your own support, everything transforms. Anxiety decreases, clarity increases, and life becomes lighter. So, the next time your mind tries to attack you, stop, breathe, and remember, you don't have to believe everything you think. You can choose to be a refuge, not a judge. The strongest voice in your life doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. Talk to yourself as someone who wants to see you grow, not as someone who punishes you for not being perfect. 5. The tiny thing that consumes you. There's a quiet pressure you carry without noticing, like a hidden grain beneath everything you do. On the outside, everything seems fine. Inside, there's a part of you trying to make everything perfect, everything right, everything under control. That's where the exhaustion begins. Initially, this effort comes from care, from the desire to do things well. Over time, it becomes an overly attentive gaze, a silent demand that accompanies you all the time. It's no longer affection for what you do, it's fear of making mistakes. Perfectionism works like this. It promises that when everything is impeccable, you will finally feel good enough. But the more you try to prove your worth, the further you get from peace of mind. And the worst part is that even when you succeed, your mind doesn't stop. It immediately says, now you need to improve even more, so stop and think, who are you trying so hard to impress? Other people, or that part of yourself that is never satisfied? The Stoics already talked about this kind of trap. They used to say that mistakes in themselves don't hurt. What hurts is how you look at them. A perfectionist sees a small detail out of place as a defeat. A confident mind sees the same thing as a learning experience. The difference isn't in the result, but in the way you see it. Nobody expects you to be perfect, they expect you to be genuine. People don't connect with a flawless image, but with your humanity. It's in mistakes that true bonds, true strength, and true growth are born. Trying to never fail only distances you from who you are. Imagine you're carrying a backpack. Every demand becomes a burden. I have to get it right. I can't make mistakes. I need to be perfect. At first you can carry it. Then the backpack becomes heavy. It dims your light and drains your energy. Letting go isn't giving up. It's removing from the backpack what never needed to be there. Self-compassion begins at this point. Talk to yourself the same way you would talk to someone you love. When something doesn't go as you expected, replace criticism with the right question. What does this teach me? This simple gesture changes everything. It frees you from guilt and puts you on the path to growth. Tranquility arrives when you understand that you don't need to prove anything, neither to the world nor to yourself. You don't need to earn rest, explain pauses, or demonstrate perfection. Your value is not in the result, but in how you treat yourself while you try. Life doesn't ask you to be flawless. It asks you to be real. And curiously, it's when you let go of the need to be perfect that things start to go better. Those who learn to make mistakes without hurting themselves inside discover a freedom that perfectionism would never allow to exist. 6. Stop creating fear in your mind. You have an incredible talent for taking a small problem and turning it into a huge disaster. If something deviates slightly from the plan, a detail changes, or even the slightest chance of error arises, your mind conjures up the worst possible scenario. Failure, loss, rejection. Everything comes ahead of time and on a gigantic scale. The most curious thing is that most of the time none of this actually happens. Even so, you've already suffered. You've felt your chest tighten, your stomach ache, your whole body react as if you were living through a real tragedy. The brain can't separate what you imagine from what's actually happening. That's why you end up facing storms that never arrive. It all starts with the famous what ifs. What if it goes wrong? What if I lose everything? What if I regret it? These questions seem like caution, but in reality they are hidden fear. They don't prepare you for anything. They only tire you out prematurely. The Stoics already said this. Suffering before the time is suffering twice. Anticipating pain doesn't protect you, it only makes you weaker. When you're stuck in tomorrow, you abandon today. It's like trying to walk with one foot firmly on the ground and the other in the air. You lose your balance. The mind, without training, becomes a factory of worries. But it can learn, not by trying to erase thoughts, because that would be like asking the wind to stop blowing, but by learning not to follow every gust. When a thought of disaster appears, don't fight it and don't try to prove anything. Just say, "Thank you for the warning, but I don't need that right now." This simple phrase breaks the cycle. After that, return to the present moment. Breathe calmly. Feel your feet touching the ground. Observe what is around you. Life is happening here, not in the future your mind creates when you feel fear. Stoic philosophy teaches exactly that. Take care of what is under your control and let the rest go. Worrying about something that doesn't yet exist is like trying to hold water in your hands. The more you squeeze, the more it slips away. So, when your mind starts playing a scary movie, ask yourself a simple question. Is this happening now or just in my head? If it's not happening, don't live as if it were. Don't waste your energy on shadows. Don't tire yourself out with possibilities. And when fear persists, remember, you don't choose which thoughts appear, but you choose how much attention you give them. That's true emotional freedom, seeing the storm from afar without getting caught in it. 7. You don't ask for trust, you build trust. You weren't born without confidence. That insecurity that holds you back today was built up little by little. It grew with comparisons, criticism, and small mistakes that seemed simple, but gave way to an inner voice that always asks, "What if I can't do it?" But that voice isn't who you are. It's an old echo, out of time. Confidence doesn't appear suddenly. It doesn't arrive like a snap or a brilliant idea. It's built like a muscle that's been still for too long and needs to move again. Every small action is an exercise. Every promise you keep is like putting a firm piece in the right place. Believing in yourself isn't about thinking you're better than others. It's about respecting yourself. True confidence doesn't need a stage. It lives in the eyes of someone who knows what they're good at and what they're still learning. It doesn't demand perfection. It demands sincerity with oneself. The Stoics reminded us that self-mastery is the greatest strength, because those who control themselves don't depend on anyone's applause. Motivation helps for a day, but consistency sustains you for a lifetime. The mistake is waiting to feel confident before acting. The reality is simple. You do it first, and confidence comes later. Every time you keep a promise you made to yourself, your confidence increases. If you say, "I'll start tomorrow," and you actually start, your mind notes, "I can trust myself." But it also notes the opposite. When you are disappointed many times, your mind learns to doubt, just as it would doubt someone who always promises and never delivers. Rebuilding that inner confidence doesn't require pretty speeches. It requires action. Start with small, almost silly goals. Waking up 10 minutes earlier, not picking up your phone during breakfast, drinking water when you've agreed to. These are simple gestures that send a clear message: I do what I say. Over time, this quiet confidence will spread throughout your life. True confidence is born from what no one sees, from routine, discipline, keeping your word, and the care you choose to give yourself, even when no one is watching. This is what transforms doubt into clarity and fear into calm. The most confident people aren't those who never fall, but those who aren't afraid to fall, because they know that each fall is just an adjustment, not the end. Therefore, stop looking for confidence in others. Stop asking the world for something that only you can create. Build from the inside out. Honor your word. Speak to yourself with respect. Treat yourself like someone who deserves care. Trust doesn't appear like a miracle. It grows silently day after day in the small choices that say, "I can count on myself." 8. Trust your own pace and life will unfold. You're always in a hurry. A hurry to understand everything, to solve everything, to get where you think you should already be. Just seeing someone achieve something you also want makes your mind race, as if you were falling behind. But there's a simple truth. Life doesn't rush by just because you're anxious. Time doesn't respond to haste, it follows its own process. Today we live in a world that idolizes speed. It seems like everyone decides quickly, grows quickly, and achieves quickly. Then you start thinking you're too slow, that you're losing ground, that you're living the wrong way. But running isn't the same as moving forward, and comparing yourself isn't the same as getting to know yourself. She already made it. He's doing better than me. I haven't even gotten anywhere yet. These phrases seem small, but they drain your energy because comparison doesn't push you forward, it wears you down. You don't grow by looking at someone else's path. Even so, you insist on measuring your life by rules that were never made for you. Each person has their own rhythm, their own story, and their own time to mature, and that can't be rushed. Think of a fruit picked too early. It's not ripe, even if you really want to eat it. Life works the same way. When you try to force what is still growing, you end up reaping something bitter. The Stoics knew this. They didn't try to control time, they respected time. They didn't want to arrive first, they wanted to arrive prepared. Because life is not measured by speed, but by depth. Imagine something simple. A tree doesn't despair because another grew faster. It knows that the most important things happen first, underground, where no one can see. The roots become strong before any branches appear. You too are putting down roots, even when it seems like nothing is changing. Patience is the secret language of confidence. It's not about standing still, it's about acting without anxiety. When you trust, you act calmly. When you don't trust, you act hastily, and that changes everything. Haste is born from fear. Calmness is born from the certainty that what is yours will not be lost. Whenever you feel you're behind schedule, ask yourself, who's speaking now, my comparison or my fear? Pause for a moment, breathe and repeat, I'm arriving in my own time. This isn't an illusion, it's clarity. Your life isn't behind schedule, it's maturing. The calendar is not a judge. Time is not your enemy. Impatience blinds you, but life continues to work inside, preparing things you cannot yet see. When this idea sinks into your heart, your mind slows down and your body rests. You understand that confidence isn't shown by rushing, but by walking calmly. Patience isn't about stopping, it's about moving forward with confidence. 9. The 90-second rule, don't feed the thought. When a bad thought appears, you usually do the worst thing possible. You talk to it. You negotiate, argue, try to understand too much, try to tie up loose ends, and without realizing it, you turn a spark into a wildfire. But there's a simple rule that changes everything. Intense emotion has a peak and a trough. If you don't add fuel to the fire, it starts to subside on its own. The problem isn't feeling it. The problem is continuing to press on the wound with your mind. The Stoics understood this differently. You are not obligated to assent to every impression. An idea arrives like a visitor. You decide whether to open the door or let it pass. And here's where the practice comes in. When the impulse arises, to respond, explain, check, imagine, search for signs, do the opposite. Stop, breathe, remain still for a moment. Not to conquer the thought, but to disobey it. Say it silently, I don't act at the peak, because at the peak you become a hostage. At the peak you interpret everything as a threat. At the peak you say what you didn't mean, do what you didn't need to, and then pay the price with guilt and exhaustion. Hold on for 90 seconds. That's all. Feel your body, feel your breath, feel the ground, and watch the wave crashing down. You'll be surprised, a lot of what seemed urgent was just adrenaline. Every time you don't feed yourself, you teach your mind a lesson. I am not governed by impulse. That's freedom. It's not about becoming cold. It's about becoming your own master. And with time, what used to bring you down becomes just background noise. Today's exercise, when an anxious thought comes, time it for 90 seconds and do nothing but breathe and observe. Question: what is the trigger that most makes you act at the peak? 10. Stop checking to calm yourself down. This trains anxiety. There's a silent addiction that seems innocent, but it traps you more than you imagine. Checking for relief. Checking messages, checking for signals, checking if the person replied, checking if someone liked it, checking if everything is all right. You do this thinking you're seeking peace, but in reality, you're training your mind to believe that you're only okay when you receive external confirmation. It works like a dog that learns to bark to get food. At first it barks once, then it barks more, because it realized that the noise brings a reward. Your mind learns the same way. If I check, I'll be relieved. And every time you rush to check, you reinforce the cycle. You don't resolve the anxiety, you teach it to come back stronger, sooner, and with more demands. Stoicism cuts this off at the root. You don't need guarantees to act with dignity. You need inner direction. The question isn't, is this under control? It's, what depends on me now? If you're trying to check something that depends on someone else, you've already strayed from your center. You've already handed over the steering wheel. So make the switch. Instead of checking, choose an action that brings you back to yourself. Get up and tidy something up. Take 5 minutes to focus on a task. Drink water. Take a walk. Write 2 lines. Fact, story. Because when you return to concrete actions, you regain self-respect. And self-respect is the purest form of tranquility. Today's exercise: choose a check that you do automatically and delay it for 15 minutes. When you feel the urge, write it down. What am I trying to control? Question: what do you check most when you're anxious? And why? 11. Its strength comes from calmness. Have you ever noticed how the world confuses haste with capability? Everything seems to have to be answered immediately, resolved immediately, decided immediately, as if every second were a race against something no one sees. Without realizing it, you start to think that staying calm means being behind schedule. But there is a strength that almost no one trains, the tranquility that remains firm even when everything around you is shaking. This isn't about standing still, giving up, or hiding. It's an inner stability that isn't broken by any external noise. Imagine a flame protected inside a glass. Outside it's windy, raining, everything is shaking. Inside, the flame continues to burn because it's in the right place. Calmness works that way. It creates an inner refuge, and those who have this refuge don't react in despair. With calmness, you make better decisions. When chaos arises, true strength lies not in shouting, accusing, or exploding, but in taking a breath and thinking before responding. Calmness is not weakness. Calmness is control. It's you saying to yourself, I choose how to react. I don't let fear decide for me. The mind, when frightened, sees danger in shadows. But when you pause, you realize that many of these dangers only existed in your imagination. The Stoics already spoke of this. They said that you don't control the world, but you can choose the meaning you give to it. The storm is the same. What changes is who is in charge. When you're calm, you think more clearly, see beyond impulse, and act with care. When you're hasty, you react emotionally and almost always regret it later. And calmness can be trained. It starts with simple attitudes, not responding to everything immediately, not taking everything as an attack, not carrying the weight of other people's moods. It's like regulating the volume of your own mind. You don't shut out the world, but you decide how much of it enters you. When you feel anxiety rising, do the opposite of what the impulse tells you to do. Stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and return to the present moment. Almost nothing is truly urgent. They are just thoughts racing faster than life itself. Trusting yourself means remembering that you've already been through moments you thought you couldn't endure. And yet, you're still here. Maybe tired, but wiser, stronger, and more aware. That's confidence. It's not the certainty that everything will turn out all right, but the assurance that, if it doesn't, you'll know how to handle it. Staying calm amidst chaos doesn't make you cold. It makes you mature. Those who govern their own tranquility govern their own lives. And when everything seems about to fall apart, remember, calmness doesn't eliminate chaos, but it keeps you whole while you navigate it. This calmness has always been within you, waiting for the moment when you would choose to listen to it. If this idea resonated with you, write in the comments. Not everything needs control. Many things just require trust. If this video helped you see things differently, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, comment and share. Here we continue learning and growing stronger together. Thank you for watching.